Your bank account is a mirror. It reflects your habits, not your wishes. If you want to change the numbers in your wallet, you must first change the numbers in your daily choices. Money is not the mystery. The mystery is why some build it with the same 24 hours you and I have, while others let it slip through their fingers. Wealth doesn't start in your wallet. It starts in your habits, in the little choices you make every single day. If you want to know why the rich keep getting richer, it's not magic, it's not luck, it's because they've mastered the smart habits of money. And the good news? So can you. Wealth is built on habits, not events. I learned a long time ago that success is never owned, it's only rented. And rent is due every single. Some people look at wealth as if it's a lottery ticket, some lucky strike, or one big event that changes everything. But the truth is, wealth doesn't come that way. Wealth comes like the seasons, slowly, predictably, quietly, and it's built on the small disciplines you practice every single day. If you ignore the disciplines, wealth ignores you. But if you adopt them, even in the smallest of ways, they compound into a future you won't believe. When I was a young man, I thought wealth was about opportunities or chances. I thought maybe if I found the right business or got the right job, everything would change overnight. But I discovered something sobering. The big events don't matter if the small habits aren't in place. If you give a man $1 million, but he has poor financial habits, chances are he'll be broke in a short while. But if you take away all the money from a man with strong habits, he'll find a way to build it back, because his wealth isn't in his wallet, it's in his routines. Think about it this way. Discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. Most people carry around the weight of regret simply because they didn't want to carry the small ounce of discipline each day. If you save $1 a day, it doesn't feel like much. If you write down your expenses every evening, it doesn't feel like much. If you read 10 minutes from a financial book, it doesn't feel like much. But the key is this: the little disciplines don't seem to matter in the moment. Missing one doesn't ruin you. Saving one doesn't make you rich. But multiplied over weeks, months, years, and decades, they become the foundation of everything. When I was starting out, someone told me to pick one small financial habit and do it every day without fail. At first I thought, how could something so small matter? But then I realized that a habit is more than the act. It's the proof to yourself that you can be trusted with your own future. I began journaling my thoughts about money. Every night, I wrote down what I earned, what I spent, and what I learned about myself. That habit changed the way I thought. Soon after, I added the habit of saving 10%, then 20%. These small habits built the confidence and discipline I needed to make larger, smarter moves later. Wealth is not built in dramatic gestures. It's built in the quiet decisions no one else sees. The decision to put aside a portion of your income when your friends are spending it all. The decision to stay home and study instead of chasing entertainment every night. The decision to review your finances when it would be easier to ignore them. These daily practices are invisible builders of your fortune. And here's what I found. Once you commit to a habit, you no longer rely on willpower. You rely on systems. A system is nothing more than a habit repeated long enough that it becomes automatic. And that's the secret. You don't need to think about brushing your teeth every morning. You just do it. What if saving, investing, or tracking money became just as automatic? That's when wealth begins to take root in your life. So don't wait for the big break or the lucky strike. They may never come, and even if they do, without habits, you won't keep what you receive. Instead, decide today on one financial habit you will practice daily, no matter what. Maybe it's saving, maybe journaling, maybe reviewing your spending, Do it until it becomes as natural as breathing. Because wealth is not an event, it's a process. And that process is written in the ink of your daily habits. Wealth is not something you wait for, it's something you build, one habit at a time. Smart work outweighs hard work. Now, don't misunderstand me. I believe in hard work. I believe in showing up early, staying late, giving your best, and putting in the effort. But I also learned a powerful lesson along the way. You don't get rich by effort alone, you get rich by value. Two people can work the same 10 hours, sweat the same, and put in the same energy, but one of them earns 10 times more than the other. Why? Because the marketplace pays for value, not time. If time alone made people wealthy, then everyone who works long hours would already be rich. But that isn't the case. The secret isn't to work harder, it's to work smarter by making yourself more valuable. When I was young, I thought if I could just outwork everyone else, I'd get ahead. I worked long days, often wore myself out, and still found myself barely moving forward. Then someone asked me a simple question that changed my perspective. They said, "You're putting in the hours, but what are those hours worth?" That's when I realized the problem wasn't my work ethic, it was the value of my work. You see, the world doesn't reward effort alone, it rewards results, solutions, and impact. If you can solve bigger problems, you get bigger rewards. If you increase the value you bring, the marketplace will always find a way to compensate you. Let me give you an example. Imagine a janitor who works 8 hours cleaning floors. Honest work, respectable work, but the pay is limited because the value in the marketplace for that role is limited. Now imagine someone who has developed leadership and management skills. In the same 8 hours, that person can lead a team, manage projects, and solve challenges that affect hundreds of thousands of dollars. The effort is still 8 hours, but the value is completely different. One man's time is worth $10 an hour. Another man's time is worth hundreds or even thousands. What makes the difference? The skills, the knowledge, the capacity to solve problems. This is why smart work always outweighs hard work. Because if you're working harder but not smarter, you'll always feel like you're running in place. But if you decide to grow your skills, every hour you put in becomes more valuable than the last. That's how you multiply your wealth. Not by stretching yourself thinner, but by increasing your value. Now, here's the strategy. Upgrade yourself every single day. Dedicate at least 30 minutes a day to developing one high-value skill. It could be leadership, because people who know how to inspire and guide others always rise to the top. It could be sales, because the ability to persuade and communicate ideas effectively is rewarded everywhere. It could be investing, because learning how money works multiplies the returns of everything else you do. 30 minutes a day may not sound like much, but over a year, that's more than 180 hours of focused learning. That's a college semester dedicated to making yourself more valuable in the marketplace. I started small myself. In my early days, I chose communication. I knew that if I could learn to speak well, I could lead, inspire, and persuade. At first it was uncomfortable. I stumbled, I failed, I doubted myself. But with practice, those 30-minute sessions compounded, and soon that skill began opening doors I could never have imagined. What was once a weakness became the very skill that shaped my life and created opportunities I never thought possible. The truth is, you already have the hours in your day. The question is, how much are those hours worth? If they're worth little, your income will always reflect that. But if you invest in yourself daily, then each year your hours will compound in value, and the marketplace will notice. So don't just work harder, work smarter. Don't just sweat more, learn more. Dedicate yourself to building value, because when you increase the value of your time, you increase the wealth of your life. The marketplace doesn't pay for time, it pays for value. Invest with patience, not emotion. Too many people approach wealth like a gambler approaches the slot machine. They want the thrill, the rush, the big strike. They want to win like it's the lottery. But wealth doesn't grow that way. Wealth grows like a tree, slowly, steadily, quietly, and only with time and care. If you plant a seed today and dig it up tomorrow because you don't see fruit, you'll never have an orchard. But if you keep planting, keep watering, and let the seasons do their work, one day you'll look up and find yourself standing in the shade of the wealth you patiently nurtured. When I was younger, I had to learn this the hard way. I remember the first time someone told me about investing. They made it sound exciting, big gains, quick profits. And like many, I was tempted. I thought, maybe I can shortcut the process. Maybe I can get wealthy faster. But the truth was, I didn't have the discipline yet. I let my emotions run my money. I invested because I felt greedy when prices went up, and I sold because I felt fearful when prices went down. That cycle of greed and fear is the same trap that keeps millions broke. It wasn't until I learned patience that I discovered the real formula. The philosophy is simple. Wealth is not an event, it's a process. Just like nature doesn't deliver fruit in the same season you plant the seed, wealth doesn't deliver returns in the same season you invest. The poor chase quick wins, chasing the newest scheme, hoping to outguess the system. But the rich practice patience. They know that consistent action over time beats emotional reaction every single. So here's the strategy. Stick to disciplined, long-term investing. Don't treat the market like a casino. Treat it like soil. And soil rewards the farmer who sows faithfully, not the gambler who throws dice. One of the simplest and most powerful strategies I ever came across is dollar cost averaging. That means putting in a set amount of money consistently, no matter what the market is doing. Rain or shine, up or down, you stay the course. Over time, this discipline evens out the highs and lows and allows compounding to work its magic. Compounding is one of the great miracles of life. Albert Einstein called it the eighth wonder of the world. If you understand it and apply it, it works for you. If you ignore it, it works against you. Think about it. When you plant a seed, one tree grows. That tree then produces seeds for more trees. Over time, what started as a single seed becomes an entire forest. That's compounding. And it only works if you give it time. That's why patience is not optional. It's the very soil in which wealth grows. For the practical step, I always encourage people to start small. You don't need thousands of dollars to begin. Open a retirement account or a simple investment account and commit to a small, consistent amount each month. Maybe it's $50, maybe $100. If that's all you can do, then start there. But start. Put that money into broad, safe vehicles. Index funds, retirement accounts, things designed to grow steadily over time. Forget about trying to outguess the market. Forget about chasing the next hot stock. Just be consistent. Let me tell you, the discipline of setting aside even a small amount changes you. It's not just about the money. It's about proving to yourself that you can think long-term, that you can stay steady when everyone else is panicking or celebrating. It trains your mind to see wealth as a process, not a prize. And that training, that mindset, will serve you in every other area of your financial life. So don't invest with emotion. Don't chase after every shiny opportunity that promises quick riches. Invest with patience. Plant seeds. Water them consistently. And let time do what only time can do. Because wealth, like a tree, takes years to grow. But when it does, it provides shelter, fruit, and legacy far greater than anything built on impatience. Wealth is grown like a tree, not won like a lottery. Guard against debt traps. One of the most dangerous illusions in our modern world is that borrowing brings freedom. You swipe the card, you drive the car off the lot, you take the vacation, and it feels like abundance. But that kind of debt isn't freedom at all. It's slavery disguised as pleasure. Debt used for consumption robs tomorrow's freedom for today's satisfaction. It gives you a taste of honey but leaves you bound in chains. And the truth is, millions are walking around smiling on the outside while carrying invisible shackles on the inside. All because they didn't understand the weight of debt. When I was young, I learned very quickly the difference between good debt and bad debt. Good debt is like a tool. It can be used to buy an asset, to build something that grows in value, to create opportunity. Bad debt is like a trap. It gives you something shiny for a moment, but it costs you 10 times more in the long run. And most people fall for it because it's easy. Credit is easy. Debt is easy. But the easy road leads to a very hard life. The philosophy is simple. Debt used for consumption is slavery. If you borrow for clothes, for dinners, for gadgets, for anything that disappears after a short while, you're not just buying the item, you're buying change. Every payment you make in the future is a reminder that you traded freedom for a fleeting pleasure. The rich understand this principle. They use debt sparingly and strategically, like a lever to move something that will produce greater wealth. But they never borrow to impress neighbors or to chase the weekend thrill. The strategy, then, is clear. Use debt only as a tool for growth, never for wants that vanish. If you must borrow, let it be for an investment that pays you back more than you owe. A business, a property, an education that equips you to earn more, these can be justifiable if managed wisely. But never borrow for consumption, because that's just digging a hole deeper every time you swipe the card. Now here's the practical step. Take inventory of your debts. Write them all down. Don't hide from them. Don't pretend they're not there. Face them. Then commit to eliminating them one by one using what I like to call the snowball method. Start with the smallest debt, even if it's just a few $100s. Attack it with every extra dollar you can find. Once it's gone, take that payment and roll it into the next one. Each victory gives you momentum, like a snowball rolling down a hill. It may feel small at first, but over time it gathers speed and power, and before long, you'll find yourself free of those chains. I remember a young couple who came to me years ago, drowning in credit card debt. They were both working hard, but every month, most of their paycheck went to paying interest. They weren't buying freedom, they were renting slavery. I told them to cut up the cards, write down every debt, and start with the smallest one. At first, they resisted. It felt too small, too insignificant. But when they paid off that first card, something changed. They felt hope, they felt momentum. A year later, they were out of debt completely. And for the first time in years, their money belonged to them, not to the lender. The truth is, you can't build wealth if all your dollars are already spoken for by yesterday's pleasures. Debt consumes your future before you even arrive there. But when you eliminate it, you not only free your finances, you free your spirit. You walk lighter, you think clearer, and you finally have room to grow. So guard yourself. Don't be deceived by the glitter of easy credit. Remember, every time you borrow for consumption, you're signing away a piece of tomorrow's freedom. Protect yourself. Build wealth by using debt as a tool only for growth, and never for fleeting wants. Because true wealth is freedom, and freedom cannot survive under chains. Debt may promise pleasure, but in the end, it always delivers bondage. Learn relentlessly and teach generously. You see, there's a limit to what formal education can do for you. School may prepare you for a living, but it rarely prepares you for a fortune. And wealth, real wealth, requires something beyond the classroom. It requires a lifetime of self-education. You've got to decide that learning doesn't end when you leave school. In fact, that's where it begins. If you stop learning, you stop growing. And if you stop growing, your wealth, your opportunities, your influence, they all begin to shrink. I discovered early in my career that the difference between making a living and making a fortune was the difference between what I was taught and what I decided to teach myself. See, I had a mentor who asked me one day, "How many books have you read in the last 90 days?" And I said, "None." He said, "Then you've missed a treasure. Because in the pages of a book lies the wisdom of a lifetime, compressed, waiting for you to pick it up." That conversation changed my life. I realized that while the average person might be entertained by television every night, the successful person is educated by a book. Here's the philosophy. Knowledge compounds like money. Just as you can take $1 and let it grow with interest year after year, you can take one good idea and let it multiply in your mind until it transforms your entire future. But you don't get that compounding without the habit. 10 pages a day may not seem like much. One idea written in a journal may seem too small. But small things, done daily, create big changes over time. That's why I say, don't just read occasionally. Make learning a discipline, a daily practice. And once you learn, don't keep it to yourself. Because what you teach not only benefits others, it reinforces the lesson in you. You don't truly know a principle until you've explained it to someone else in a way they can understand. Teaching magnifies learning. It takes an idea and engraves it deeper into your own life. That's why I tell people, if you learn something today, find someone to share it with tomorrow. Could be your spouse, your children, your colleagues. Every time you teach, you grow twice. The strategy then is simple. Compound your knowledge like you would compound your money. Pick up a book, listen to an audio program, attend a seminar, have conversations with people wiser than you, and when you find a principle that resonates, don't let it sit idle, put it into practice, and then pass it on. If you read 10 pages a day, by the end of a year, you'll have read more than 3,600 pages. That's like 15 or 20 books. Imagine the transformation if you stack that much wisdom year after year. It's impossible to stay the same. Now for the practical step. Commit to reading 10 pages a day from a wealth-building book. Not a novel, not gossip, magazines, books that stretch your thinking, sharpen your skills, expand your philosophy, and every week, take one idea you've learned and share it with someone else. Teach it over coffee with a friend. Share it with your children at the dinner table. Discuss it with your colleagues. The act of teaching makes the idea come alive, not just in their life, but in yours. I once knew a man who began this simple discipline. He committed to reading just 10 pages a day, and he decided that every Friday, he'd share a principle with his teenage son. At first, the boy resisted. He thought it was boring. But over time, he began to look forward to those conversations. Years later, that boy became a successful entrepreneur, and when asked the secret, he said, "It wasn't the books I read. It was the lessons my father shared. You never know how far the ripple of your teaching can go." So don't underestimate the power of learning and teaching. Build your fortune not only with money, but with wisdom, because wisdom multiplies when it's shared. And the best way to secure your own future is to help someone else see theirs more clearly. Learn relentlessly. Teach generously. Do both, and you'll never lack wealth, influence, or fulfillment. Knowledge compounds, but only if you let it flow. When you think about wealth, don't just think about what it buys you today. Think about what it builds tomorrow. Too many people measure wealth by the car in their driveway or the size of their house. But let me tell you something. True wealth isn't in the lifestyle you flaunt. It's in the legacy you leave. Lifestyle fades, but legacy echoes. And the real test of wealth isn't how comfortable you are while you live, but how many lives are better because you once lived. The philosophy here is simple. True wealth outlives you. A paycheck disappears the moment it's spent. A car depreciates the moment you drive it off the lot. But a legacy, that lasts generations. Think about it. The books you write, the lessons you teach, the assets you leave behind, the example you set, these become the inheritance of those who come after you. Wealth measured only in possessions dies with you. Wealth measured in impact keeps working long after you're gone. I'll never forget a man I once knew who worked tirelessly to provide for his family. He bought the nicest clothes, the newest gadgets. But when he passed away unexpectedly, he left behind nothing but debt and memories. His children struggled for years, not because he didn't love them, but because he never thought beyond the moment. Compare that to another man who lived a modest lifestyle, saved diligently, invested wisely, and when he passed, he not only left his family secure, but he endowed scholarships, built a small library, and changed the destiny of children he would never meet. One lived for lifestyle, the other lived for legacy. Which do you think had the greater wealth? The strategy, then, is to start planning not only for yourself, but for those who come after you. If you only plan for today, you'll spend it all on today. If you plan for tomorrow, you'll build something lasting. Ask yourself, what will I leave behind? Not just in money, but in wisdom, in opportunities, in contributions. A wealthy person thinks beyond the end of the month. They think beyond the end of their life. Now, I'm not saying you should deny yourself every comfort or pleasure. Of course, enjoy life. But let your enjoyment be matched with foresight. Drive a nice car if you like, but also build assets that your children can inherit. Travel the world if you can, but also invest in something that outlasts your travels. It's not about choosing one or the other. It's about balancing lifestyle with legacy. Here's a practical step. Draft a simple will. It doesn't matter if you have little or much. Just put it in writing. That's the beginning of legacy planning. Then, as your assets grow, consider setting up an estate plan or creating a small fund. Could be a college fund for your children, could be a charitable fund for your community. Start small, but start, because if you don't plan your wealth, someone else will, and they won't plan it the way you'd like. I'll give you an example from my own life. Early in my career, I was focused only on getting ahead, paying the bills, buying the things I couldn't afford before, enjoying what I had missed out on. But over time, I realized that all of it was fleeting. What good is it to have a closet full of clothes when you leave your children a pile of bills? So I shifted. I began not only investing for myself, but setting aside funds for the future. And I'll tell you, the peace of mind that comes from knowing your family is secure. It's worth far more than any luxury item you could buy. So let me urge you, live for today, but build for tomorrow. Enjoy your lifestyle, but don't sacrifice your legacy for it, because in the end, nobody will remember you for the car you drove. They'll remember you for the doors you opened, the security you provided, the opportunities you created. Build wealth not just for lifestyle, but for legacy. Because when you're gone, the question will not be, what did you buy, but what did you build? Time is the most valuable currency you'll ever have. You can lose money and make it back again. You can lose possessions and buy new ones. But when you lose time, it's gone forever. That's why the poor trade their time for distractions while the rich trade their time for growth. If you ever want to know the true value of a person's wealth, don't look at their bank account, look at their calendar. It will tell you everything. The philosophy is simple. Money is replaceable, time is not. Yet most people spend their time as if they had an unlimited supply. They'll waste an afternoon scrolling through gossip or binging on entertainment and then wonder why their life feels stuck. But here's the truth. Every hour is a seed. Plant it wisely and it grows into something valuable. Waste it carelessly and it disappears into nothingness. Imagine for a moment if you treated every hour the same way you treat every dollar. If you counted it, invested it, tracked it, multiplied it, how much richer would your life become? I learned early in my career that wealth wasn't just about the money I earned, it was about how I spent my hours. At one point, I was working hard, running from task to task, and at the end of the week, I felt exhausted but not advanced. My mentor said, "Don't mistake movement for achievement. The key is not how busy you are, but what you're busy doing." That hit me. I realized I wasn't poor because of a lack of money. I was poor because of how I was spending my time. The strategy then is to treat your hours like investments. Imagine every hour as an employee. Now ask yourself, are your employees working for you or are they sitting idle? If you give your time only to entertainment, gossip, distractions, then those hours are unemployed. But if you give them to reading, learning, creating, investing, or building relationships that grow your future, those hours become the hardest working employees in your organization. You cannot get wealthy without employing your time wisely. So take a look at your schedule. If you can spend 2 hours a day watching television, but you can't find 30 minutes to read a book, you've mispriced your hours. If you can scroll through a phone for endless minutes, but can't dedicate a fraction of that to journaling your financial goals, you've undervalued your most precious currency. Wealthy people don't have more time, they just use theirs differently. Here's the practical step. Audit your daily schedule. Not once, not casually, but deliberately. Write down how you spend each hour for a week. You'll be shocked at how much time slips away unnoticed. Then replace just 1 hour of entertainment with 1 hour of wealth-building activity. It doesn't sound like much, but think of what it adds up to over time. 1 hour a day is 7 hours a week, about 30 hours a month, over 300 hours a year. That's nearly 2 full months of working hours reclaimed, just by redirecting a single hour each day. Imagine what you could build with that. I once knew a young man who worked a regular job, came home tired, and spent his evenings glued to the television. He complained that he could never get ahead. I asked him, what if you took just 1 of those hours a night and used it to study investments or start a small side project? He laughed it off at first, but eventually tried it. A year later, that single hour turned into a profitable business, and 2 years later, he left his job to run it full time. 1 hour changed his life, not because he had more time, but because he valued the time he already had. So let me tell you, wealth isn't built only in dollars, it's built in hours. Guard your time, invest your time, multiply your time, because in the end, you don't spend money to get rich, you spend time. And if you waste your time, no amount of money will save you. Your life is built in the hours you spend. Wealth built on greed is fragile. It crumbles under pressure. It disappears when times get tough. But wealth built on service, now that's wealth that lasts, because money follows value, and value comes from serving others. If you make it your mission to solve problems, money will find you. If you chase only money, it will slip through your fingers. The question isn't, how can I get rich? The question is, how can I serve better? Because the better you serve, the richer you become. In every sense of the word. The philosophy is simple. Money is nothing more than a measure of the value you create for others. Think about it. The wealthiest people in the world aren't sitting on piles of cash because they schemed their way there. They're wealthy because they figured out how to solve problems for millions of people. A doctor solves health problems, a teacher solves ignorance, a business owner solves convenience, technology, or service issues. Every dollar is simply someone saying, thank you for solving my problem. If you want more dollars, solve more problems, or solve bigger ones. I once learned this lesson the hard way. Early in my career, I was so focused on what I could get that I never stopped to think about what I could give. I wanted the paycheck, I wanted the commission, but I didn't understand the principle. My mentor asked me one day, when was the last time you stayed an extra hour to serve a client without asking for more money? I had no answer. And that was my wake-up call. I had been chasing money instead of chasing value. From that day forward, I changed my question from, what can I earn, to how can I serve? And you know what happened? The money started to multiply. The strategy then is to focus your energy on solving problems. The bigger the problem you solve, the bigger the reward. If you fix a leaky faucet, you might make a little. If you build a system that supplies clean water to a city, you'll make a fortune. If you help someone write a resume, that's useful. But if you build a business that helps millions find careers, you'll never worry about wealth again. Scale your service, and you'll scale your wealth. But don't just think big, think personal. How can you serve better in the role you're in right now? If you're an employee, ask yourself, what can I do that goes beyond my job description to make my boss or team more successful? If you're a business owner, ask, what frustrations do my customers have that I can fix before they even ask? These are not small questions. They're the questions that separate those who survive from those who thrive. Now let me give you a practical step. This week, brainstorm just one way you can add more value where you are. One extra thing you can do at work, in your business, or even in your home to serve better. Could be staying an extra half hour to improve a process. Could be following up with a client you haven't spoken to in months. Could be taking your child aside and teaching them something you've learned about money. Don't underestimate the small acts of service. Every extra seed of value you plant has the potential to grow into a harvest of wealth later. I once knew a man who worked in sales. He decided that instead of simply selling his product, he would follow up with every customer 6 months later just to check if they were still happy. No obligation, no agenda, just service. Within 2 years, he was the top performer in the company. Why? Because people trusted him. And trust is the soil in which wealth grows. So don't fall into the trap of greed. Don't chase money for its own sake. Instead, chase service. Chase value. Chase the opportunity to solve bigger and better problems for people. Because money is nothing more than the byproduct of value. And when you serve well, money follows like a faithful shadow. Wealth built on service will outlast every storm. It's one thing to make money, but it's another thing entirely to keep it. Haven't you noticed? Some people earn plenty, but their bank account never shows it. Why? Because a fool and his money are soon parted. Wealth is like a garden. It takes time to grow, but it can be destroyed overnight by weeds, pests, or carelessness. And the weeds that choke wealth are ignorance, poor decisions, and neglect. If you want to keep what you build, you must guard it with wisdom. Knowledge is the fence around your financial garden. Without it, you leave the gate wide open for loss, scams, or waste. I learned this lesson when I was younger and inexperienced. I had earned a nice check for the first time, and I thought the hard part was over. I thought making money was the battle, and once I had it, everything else would be easy. But I quickly discovered that money attracts more hands than you can imagine. Tax collectors, salesmen, bad deals, and even friends with great opportunities. I lost money because I didn't know how to read the fine print, I didn't understand taxes, and I didn't ask the right questions. It wasn't that I lacked effort, it was that I lacked knowledge. And ignorance has a price, an expensive one. That's why the strategy is clear. You must study to protect what you earn. Don't just study how to make money, study how to keep it, how to grow it, and how to shield it from loss. Learn about taxes so you don't pay more than you owe. Learn about contracts so you don't sign away your future. Learn about investments so you can spot the difference between a smart move and a scam. The wealthy don't leave their money unguarded. They put wisdom at the gates. Think of it this way. If you built a house, would you leave the doors unlocked and the windows open? Of course not. You'd protect it with locks, maybe even an alarm system. Yet many people build wealth and leave it unguarded, wide open to predators, because they never take the time to learn the rules of the game. Remember this: the marketplace rewards the informed and punishes the ignorant. That's not unfair. It's simply the way the world works. Now, let me give you something practical. Don't feel overwhelmed by the size of the subject. You don't need to know everything about economics or finance overnight. Start simple. Commit to reading one article or one chapter a week on money. It could be about investing, taxes, contracts, or the history of markets. Week by week, chapter by chapter, you'll build a fortress of wisdom around your wealth. Don't underestimate the power of small, steady learning. Just like a little savings compounded grows into fortune, a little knowledge compounded grows into wisdom that protects fortune. I once knew a man who made a fortune in real estate, only to lose half of it because he didn't understand property taxes and contracts. He trusted without verifying. After that painful lesson, he spent 2 years studying, not building, but studying. He learned about property law, markets, and taxation. When he re-entered the game, he not only rebuilt his fortune, but secured it. Why? Because now he had locks on the doors. Wealth doesn't just require effort to create, it demands wisdom to sustain. And wisdom doesn't fall from the sky. You earn it the same way you earn money, by investing time and attention. So guard your wealth with knowledge. Build your fence high with study. Keep your gate secure with awareness, and your financial garden will grow safe and strong. The money you keep is just as important as the money you earn. If you want to know where your life is heading, just look at the people you spend the most time with. You are the average of the 5 people closest to you. Your income, your habits, your attitude, even your vocabulary are shaped by those around you. It's not just philosophy, it's psychology. Human beings are influenced creatures. We pick up on energy, on words, on actions, often without even noticing. If you sit with 5 complainers, you'll soon find yourself complaining. If you sit with 5 wealth builders, you'll soon find yourself building wealth. That's how powerful environment island. When I was young, I didn't understand this. I thought I could keep one foot in mediocrity and the other in ambition. I thought I could spend time with people who wasted their time, who had no goals, who were broke not just in their wallet but in their mindset, and still expect to grow beyond them. But I found myself pulled down to their level more often than pulling them up to mine. My ambitions would get laughed at, my plans dismissed, and little by little, my fire would dim. Then one day I realized, if I wanted to grow, I had to change my circle. The strategy is simple. Surround yourself with wealth builders. Not just people with money, but people with vision, discipline, and drive. People who think big, act smart, and talk growth. People who see challenges as opportunities and setbacks as lessons. When you put yourself in the presence of such individuals, something remarkable happens. Your standards rise. Suddenly, laziness feels uncomfortable, excuses sound out of place, and average is no longer acceptable. You start aiming higher, not because you were forced to, but because the environment makes it natural. I once joined a small mastermind group when I was just starting out. At the time, I was intimidated because everyone in that room was more successful than me. They talked about investments, leadership, and opportunities I had never even considered. But instead of feeling discouraged, I felt challenged. I left those meetings with a notebook full of ideas and a fire in my belly. That group changed the trajectory of my life because they showed me what was possible and held me accountable to pursue it. That's why I tell people, wealth is not just built in your bank account, it's built in your associations. Who you talk to, who you listen to, who you spend your evenings with, all of it adds up. The poor keep company with those who complain about taxes, wages, and bad luck. The rich keep company with those who discuss ideas, solutions, and opportunities. One circle drains, the other multiplies. Which circle are you in? So let me give you a practical step. Replace just 1 hour a week, just one, with an environment that stretches you. Join a networking group, attend a seminar, connect with a mentor, or sit down with a peer who inspires you. That 1 hour, week after week, will begin to reshape your entire mindset. Because when you sit at a table where growth is the main course, you can't help but take a bite. You don't rise to your intentions, you rise to your environment. Choose carefully who has access to your ears and your time, because that choice will determine the quality of your future. Build your circle with care and watch how your wealth grows, not just in money, but in wisdom, in influence, and in freedom.